Hello everyone, I'm Hannibal. I'm with the Ancon Kentucky medical team. Today I'm going to do a pretty short video on impalement with a foreign body sticking out of the wound and how to treat that. So let's get started. Okay, so we've got our mannequin here and he's got a foreign object stuck in him and it's still there. He's been impaled by something. You treat this slightly differently depending on where it's at. This is basically in the lower abdomen groin area. It's not ideal for dressing, but that's the only hole I've got I can stick that in. So we're gonna have to work with this. If you have an impalement or something like this, the number one thing is do not remove the object. It could be dangerous. You could cause more damage than what's already been inflicted. I'm going to remove this just to make a point, but if you have this stuck through the skin and you're fiddling with it and moving it around, out here on this end you could be damaging an artery that is not currently damaged, and now all of a sudden you've created more problem than what you had to start with. So the idea behind it is, first off, don't touch it. Then depending on this where it's located at, you have to deal with it differently. So for example, if this were penetrating through a leg or through an arm and there was a lot of bleeding, there's really no way for you to apply a good pressure dressing to this area. You can dress around it, but you really can't pack it or put any pressure on there to stop the bleeding. So in the best case scenario, what you would want to do with that is throw a tourniquet on there, get that bleeding stopped. Then you could put a dressing around it to protect the area. But you want to get the bleeding stopped. Now, if this is a penetrating injury like this and it's in the chest, then you can have air leaking out from behind this. And this was something I thought about afterwards. I wish I had covered with the chest seal video, but I'm going to put it in here. Obviously, you couldn't, let's pretend for a minute that this is a chest area. You couldn't put a chest seal around this properly with this protruding. What you can do is you can take your chest seal that comes with the Ancon medical kit, and to be honest with you, you could do this with a commercial one as well, but you can cut it. Now this is just a scrap piece because I don't want to cut up a chest seal because I've got a limited amount of those and I'm trying to get them out to kits. But this is the same material. You recognize it. Well, let me just grab the chest seal and show you. This is what our chest seal looks like. It's the same. This is just a smaller piece of the same material. So you could cut this material as needed. The key though is when you cut it, you have to include this blue strip in whatever piece you cut, because that is where you peel it from. If I went and cut this piece off and just had this is worthless to me because I can't get it started to peel it off. So you always want to keep a blue strip if you cut it. So I could cut this with my trauma shears and have a small strip like this. Then if I had a chest wound, I could take this and peel off the number 1 strip, and I can place it around the object like this and just curve it around the object and stick it down, and then cut another strip and do the exact thing on the other side. If you want to, you can remove the number 2 strip. It's just a backing. It doesn't do anything. So if you want to, you can remove it, work that seal down and put another one on the other side, and this drape sticks to each other very good. So if you took another piece and laid it around on this side of it, that will seal up around that hole quite well, and that's a way that you could put a chest seal on and block any leakage if this were in a chest. Okay, so if you may have to do either one of those things. If it's a chest wound, you may have to seal it. If it's in a extremity, you may have to put a tourniquet on to stop the bleeding. Now once that is done, a dressing that you would put around this is made to reinforce this to keep it in place so it's not getting jostled or moved. So the idea is to kind of build something around it to hold it in place. So what I would do with our kit is I would take out my ABD pad and I would wrap it around it gently. And preferably, if you have a bystander, you could ask them to help. Or you could even ask the patient to help if they're with it enough to do that, and ask them to place their hand and hold that in place for you. Then I would wrap this. And you can use the Coban, you could use your Curlex. Either one of them would work just fine. In this case, I kind of like the Curlex because there's so much more of it. You can also use it to reinforce this and make a bulkier dressing. Now this is a very awkward place to get in here and wrap, but you're getting the idea. So if you're going to wrap it with Curlex, first off, leave a tail so you've got something to tie it. Then I'm going to wrap, and I'm going to try not to actually push on the object. The desire is to push on the padding that I've put around there. And I'm just going to wrap this and make some rounds and go around both sides of it and kind of completely surround this with this gauze. And you can actually take a few loops around it if you want to build it up. And you want to just continue to wrap this and use up what you've got here in the way of gauze. And then you can secure it. Now I've wrapped my tail up here, so I've lost it. There. So I've left my tail there, so now I can bring it around here and I can tie these ends together and secure that. And that gives some reinforcement to this object so it's not being jostled and moved while you're transporting the patient. You could use your Coban, do the same thing, and that's pretty much it. As far as dressing this, something like this, you just want to, the idea being to reinforce it and hold it in place. As far as improvising, you'll have to work with what you have. My thoughts, if I had nothing else coming in here but my pocket knife that I carry with me all the time, I would cut the person's clothes off, which you're going to do anyway to get to the wound, but I'd cut off their shirt or their jacket, and I would use that material to build up something. You could take some of it and wrap around. I showed this in another video. I always in my kit, because I'm old, I carry triangular bandages or cravats. They're just come in a little kit like this. They have a safety pin with them. They're cloth, usually a muslin, and they look like this when you first open them. If you unroll them out, it's a big triangle like this. And there's 101 ways you can use this for a bandage. And I was trained in the Boy Scouts to use these, and the military used to use these before World War II when they came out with the Carlisle bandage. If you have something like this, this can be used to secure it. You could wrap under, come around this side, wrap around this way, tie it. You could also do the same thing with strips of t-shirt, cloth, socks, any kind of clothing like that. You could hold it in place. The main thing is just not to jostle this any more than absolutely necessary, and whatever else, don't pull it out. So that's, of course, if they're going to go into shock, you want to just standard shock treatment. You want to try to keep them warm. If there's any kind of abdominal wound, or I would say even chest wound, don't give them anything to eat or drink. It's not as critical if it's a wound on the arm or something. You can probably give them something, but as they lose blood, they get very thirsty. Well, the hope always is if something like this happens, that, you know, medical care is going to be minutes away. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's hours away. And in that case, somebody, you may have to keep up with them for a prolonged period of time. And you may have to deal with things like thirst, hunger, whatever. That's about it I can think of on that one. Pretty straightforward, simple stuff. Keep up the work with AMCON. Stay alert, stay alive.